It enhances your communication and quiets your thoughts. It also strengthens your immunity and heart-brain coherence. Hold the mudra with one hand or with both hands. Remain in this hand position while enjoying the video. Gently bring your ring finger and thumb together.
So today my conversation with you is going to address something very interesting that we all hear about, okay? And we all talk about the mystery of memory. What is karma? Is there such a thing as reincarnation? What is creativity? Is there a connection between memory, karma, creativity, and reincarnation? So if you are keen on exploring this with me, just press the like button or just tell me that you are. And we're up to about 1,000 people now online, so it's time to start. Good morning, Aurora. Today's topic is karma, memory, reincarnation, and creativity. So actually, let's start with something that we're all familiar with, and that is our experience of memory. So as an experiment right now, just try to remember in your mind's eye what you were doing at your last meal. Maybe last night dinner, or early this morning breakfast, or lunch, or whatever, wherever you are, with your eyes open or your eyes closed, recall the experience of eating a meal, your last meal, whatever you ate. For example, my last meal was a bowl of khichdi, which is some rice and lentils with a little bit of pickle. And that was actually last night. So as I remember that experience, last night dinner, in somewhere in my consciousness, we might say in my mind's eye, I recollect the experience. I can see the image of the bowl of khichdi, lentils and rice. I can actually recreate the experience of the taste and smell and texture of the food. And I can also remember who I was with, where I was, the dining table, the other people, and all these experiences come to me in my consciousness with just one intention. What did I eat for dinner last night? That's the question. The rest happens automatically, okay? And what appears on the screen of consciousness that we call memory is a present experience of sensations, images, feelings. I enjoyed the dinner or didn't enjoy it. So sensations, images, feelings, and of course thoughts, and the recollection or reconstruction of what we call qualia. Qualia. Q-U-A-L-I-A. Qualia. So qualia is a very interesting word. It actually means quality, a unit of experience, a quality of experience. So qualia occur in the form of shapes and colors and forms and sensations and perceptual activity and thoughts and emotions. Let's say there are two kinds of qualia. Reified qualia. Reified means made concrete, as when you take water vapor and you turn it into water, and then you can turn it into ice. Ice is the reification of water vapor. The water vapor is spread out, and ice is solid with boundaries. Okay, so the reification means simply making something concrete. So we know that, given the example I've given, water, ice, vapor. And then, of course, you can have, with ice, you can make all kinds of sculptures and objects and call them statues. A statue by Michelangelo, a statue of Mahatma Gandhi, etc., etc. So this is a good example that we've taken. And of course, we know that the vapor is made of water as well. And in our common agreement, we call water H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. And then the experience is wetness. Now the hydrogen by itself is an explosive gas. So is oxygen. So two elements that can create explosions combine to create wetness and something that alleviates our thirst. That's called an emergent property. In any case, now we also know that the atoms, the hydrogen and oxygen and all of that make up the water vapor are of course particles and waves of probability in mathematical space, and ultimately these particles are emerging from what scientists today call the quantum vacuum, which strictly speaking is just virtual particles that escape as actual particles that build up the universe. This is standard model thinking, physicalist thinking, which of course is wrong, but not to worry about that for the moment. Okay, so no matter what you look at, in the end, as you look at it even objectively, you realize that no object has permanence, that ultimately objects are subject to decay, and that all objects have their source in what we call nothingness, a field of possibilities. This is regular science, by the way. But now let's go a little deeper. As you were recalling last night's dinner, you had an experience. And what you had, the experience was of qualia. And so if I ask you now, where in the brain was the memory of last night's dinner? I've asked this question many times of many scientists. Where in your brain is the memory of last night's dinner? In fact, what happens is when you recall that memory, a lot of the brain goes into action, not just one part of the brain. Many disparate parts of the brain simultaneously go into action, and neural networks connect with each other, and boom, you have a qualia experience. Okay? How that happens is still considered the hard problem of consciousness, which means how do atoms and molecules and force fields, which are all considered physical and ultimately physical objects in one way or another, matter and energy, how does that create the experience you just had of what you had for dinner last night? And where was the memory? Where were these qualia before you actually experienced them? First of all, understand that there are no images in the brain, no colors in the brain, no sound in the brain, no textures, no emotions, no thoughts. All there is in the brain is electrochemical activity and some kind of correlation of these electrochemical activities that presumably gives rise to the qualia experience. But no one can explain that. That is called the hard problem. How does physical matter cause experience? Whatever the experience is. The gross qualia experience is what we call perceptual activity, which we call the physical world. And the subtle qualia experience is what we call mental activity, emotions, thoughts, creativity, imagination, vision, etc. So how do physical interactions in the brain give us the experience of qualia? And what I'm saying to you today is that they don't. In fact, those physical interactions are also qualia. There's no such thing as an unperceived object, and that includes the brain. There's no such thing as an unperceived or unexperienced qualia, and the brain itself is a collection of qualia assembled into the appearance of the brain. So where was that memory before you recalled it? And the answer is, it did not exist. In fact, what we call a memory is a present experience of qualia. A memory is a present experience of qualia. A memory is a present thought. And the qualia are collected and assembled just by intention. Okay, there's no location in the brain for the presence of qualia. And no memory exists until the moment it is actualized. And when it is actualized, it's actually a recollection or recognition that we call the past. Every experience is of the past. Even present moment experience is of the past. Right now, by the time you process this experience of seeing me, hearing me, it is already in the past. So we are experiencing the past in the present. The presence of the past in the present, the presence of the past in this moment, which is not in time, but just the awareness that is always there. The presence of the past is, or the recreation of the past, or the recognition of the past, recognize, or the reassembling of qualia from the past, given meaning, is a memory. Okay, so that was last night, the dinner last night. But what about, let's try and remember now a memory from our childhood. Do it right now. Think of your house where you were living when you were a teenager, or even better, when you were a child. Try and recall the house, the picture. Try and recall your school, your classmates, your parents, your siblings, birthday parties, etc. And suddenly that experience comes back. Okay, so the other day I was walking by the skating rink at Rockefeller Center, and on an impulse I decided to get some skates and skate on ice. And I hadn't ice skated since I was a child or teenager at most, and yet I was able to skate because I'd learned to skate. The same is true of say learning to ride a bike, or learning to drive a car, or learning a language. Once you learn a language and start to use it, or learn the alphabet, you can't unlearn it. Once you learn to walk, you can't unlearn it. Okay, it's impossible. Try to unlearn anything that you've learned. It's impossible. So when I was skating on ice, and I kind of started to wonder, the brain that learned how to skate, if it did, is not the brain that was skating last week or recently on the ice rink in Rockefeller Center or Rockefeller Plaza. So the brain that learned to walk, the brain that learned to speak English, the brain that learned the alphabet, the brain that learned to count, the brain that learned to ice skate or to ski or do anything which I take for granted right now, is not the brain I'm using to recollect that experience, because if the brain created that experience, it was another brain. Every atom, every molecule, every electrochemical activity in the brain you're having right now is present moment activity, nothing to do with the activity that was happening when you learnt all those skills, walking, speaking, etc., perceiving, because perception is a learned phenomenon. Everything that you learned exists as memory, which has no location in space-time. So who or what is it that recalls? And we say, I recall. But then we also confuse I with the body and the mind and the brain and an experience that doesn't exist anymore, right? So this is a great mystery. And it is pointing in a certain direction, and that direction is that every memory is a reassembling of qualia, and it gives meaning to experience. That's all. And the meaning is, of course, by common agreement. So, bottom line, memories are not stored in anything that we can call physical. Memories exist as potentials in awareness. That's it. And then they're actualized in awareness by reconstructing them and actually reassembling them. And this constant reassembling is the changing body-mind-world experience that we call life. Life is a continuum of a qualia program that begins at birth and ends at death. But since memory is not stored physically, it goes back to seed form, which are called sanskaras in Sanskrit, and these seeds become the potential for actualization of memories in the future. So when people say reincarnation, the question is who or what reincarnates? And the answer is what reincarnates is actually the actualization of selective memories that we identify with, good and bad. And in fact, the memory recycling involves both recollection and also forgetting, because there's lots of things that we forget, right? If I asked you what were you doing at 4 p.m. last Tuesday, the answer is probably you won't recollect it unless it was an emotional experience or a very significant experience. You fell in love at 4 p.m. last Tuesday. Well, you'll remember that. We were just crossing a street in New York City with nothing interesting. You actually will not be able to recall it. So even though it is somewhere in your consciousness as a potential experience that can be reactualized. That's what happens with lots of people experiencing deja vu. They recall or reassemble memories that they don't have a personal experience of. They're going to this domain of memories, this matrix of memories that in Eastern wisdom traditions are called the Akashic record or the Akashic field, which is the matrix of collective memories that we can actually access by quietening our own internal dialogue. Okay, so what is happening, what we call reincarnation, is the recycling of selective memories that I, as a monad of consciousness, which is immaterial, non-local, spaceless, timeless, boundless, infinite drop in the ocean of consciousness, that is recycling as this experience and the changing experience at that. And the experience is always qualia, imbued with meaning and purpose and story. So what we do as human beings is we give meaning, context, purpose, relationship and story to qualia. And the continuum of these qualia, imbued with meaning, context, story, relationship, is the software of our soul that is manifesting as what we call our life. Okay. But if the soul or conscious agent is not in space and time, then this soul is on an eternal cosmic journey to learn from experience, and that past experience is what we call karma, identifying with past experience. And that creates an identity, The identity is selective identification and interpretation of past experience and memories, and then that leads to desires, and that becomes the soul's journey through cosmic time. To what end? To arrive where we started from. To arrive where we started from. Remember, what's his name? T.S. Eliot's poem, "We shall not cease from exploration." And at the end of our exploring, we arrive where we started from and know the place for the first time. Okay, now knowing this mechanism, you can do something very important, and you can do something really, really important. And this is Shraddha. Shraddha Adukya says, "Want to meet you." Where do you live, Shraddha? Which country and which city? And, we are meeting right now, non-locally and locally. So in any case, selective identification with memory of the formless being, that is called a conscious agent or a soul, creates identity. But this identity can be changed anytime. It's totally provisional. All you have to do is, Shraddha is in Hong Kong. I'll let you know when I come to Hong Kong. So this selective identification, which we can change any time, by the way, by choosing to identify with certain memories, the identity can change physically, emotionally, in every which way, because the form is just a manifestation of the formless identifying itself with its own creative experiences. Okay, so the opposite of karma is creativity. And what is creativity? It is a new context, new meaning, new relationship, or new mode of interacting in that relationship, even if it's the same relationship, and new story. It's basically using karma, but not allowing karma to use you. Okay, it's using karma, but not allowing karma to use you. Lord Shiva, I use memories, but I do not allow memories to suit me. Jeannie says, selective like changing clothes. Yes, every time you change your clothes, you select your outfit. So that's what we do. Every time we change our bodies, we are changing our clothes. Very good. I like this. Okay, so here's the key to creativity. Use memories, but don't allow memories to use you. Refine your senses, subtle experience of sound, touch, taste, smell, texture, color, shape, form. This is called refinement of tanmatras. Okay, so first of all, use memories, don't allow memories to use you. Refine the tanmatras, the subtle senses. See the whole in the particular, see the totality in the particular, because you and I are holograms, localized. So see the whole in the particular, see the particular in the whole. And understand karmic relationship and bonds as teachers to move to higher consciousness, and then take quantum leaps of creativity and imagination. I'm using this word purposely, quantum. So when you understand quantum metaphorically right now, you'll see that quantum particles do strange things. They can be in two places at the same time. They can teleport from one location to another location without going through the space in between. They are entangled with each other, and on and on. Everything is very counterintuitive about these subatomic realms of existence. But you go beyond that into the realm of pure consciousness, and you're doing the same thing all the time. Our imagination is taking quantum leaps. Think of the Empire State Building, and now think of Hong Kong, and you've taken a quantum leap in consciousness. You see the Empire State Building, you see the ferry in Hong Kong, and you didn't go all the way in between from New York to Hong Kong. Imagination is always taking quantum leaps. So is creativity, by taking leaps of disruption from karmic recycling. Karmic recycling is the prison, and quantum leaps of creativity is exactly the breaking of the walls of the prison. So, practice something called metacognition. Metacognition is to be aware in the present moment of whatever experience you're happening. Vlad asked, how do I activate Tanmatras? I will show you how. Where was I? So here, practice metacognition. Observe yourself having an experience in the present moment, whatever that experience is. Okay, the experience of your body, the experience of a thought, the experience of an image, the experience of a sensation. Observe yourself in the present moment having an experience, and what you observe are qualia. And then also observe yourself making choices. Okay, so Derek says, I disagree. Okay, great, Derek. Please tell me why you disagree, and that'll be great. So metacognition is being present in the moment to experience as it is happening, and then also being present to choices as you make them. So, which is both the same thing, because choices create experiences, and experience influences our choices. Okay, so today's word is metacognition. The ability to observe yourself without judging yourself. But observing yourself means being aware of awareness, but also being aware of the modified experiences of awareness, which we call qualia. We are qualia generating consciousness. We call that experience mind, body, and universe. Okay, so freedom of karma is freedom from karma is freedom to create. And the various forms of yoga, including Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Gyan Yoga, Karma Yoga, are all means to get in touch, not just with what you know and what you experience, but actually get in touch with the source of all knowing and experience, which is infinite and can keep generating infinite number of qualia with infinite meanings and contexts and stories, and therefore infinite modes of knowing and experience, and ultimately consciously creating those experiences. Karma is being a victim, and freedom of from karma is being a creator. And that's who we are. Creators of our life journey. Okay, enough for today. Thank you for your feedback, and we will continue this conversation. We can discuss different aspects of of how to free ourselves from karma and maximize the experience of creativity.